There was one key moment in my 14 years in the gym that drastically changed the trajectory of my strength and physique. And that was when I finally started lifting heavy weights consistently. For a number of years, I trained my upper body really hard and nailed my diet. But despite my best efforts, I could never get anywhere near that really lean and muscular body that I was trying to achieve. Kid you not, within a year of lifting heavy consistently, I finally built mass and looked like a completely different person. And the best part about this, it only takes me 1, sometimes 2 sets a week to get all these results with my training, transforming not only the strength and shape of my arms, but my overall physique. So in this video, I want to show you why muscle development is such an important part of your training, even if your goals are just to be fit and have a six-pack. Also, how it's possible to cover the majority of your needs in 1 set per muscle per week. And then I'm going to walk you through the specific method that I use and now teach, so you can try this for yourself and start building more mass in your arms today. If you want to skip the background and get straight into what I do, I've left chapter marks for you. But if you want to fully understand why and how this works, then let's dive in. I've always known that you should train your arms, but that didn't mean that I was necessarily consistent with it at all. And there's a few key problems that I think held me back. One is that arm training is, as it's typically done, has a big focus on the biceps, not to mention the 1,000 different exercises to hit the one muscle. And in the face of it all, I hated lifting heavy. All I cared about was getting a six-pack and being fit. And I thought that that's all I needed to look good. I didn't want big muscles, at least when I first started. And the result was that I never really stuck to any serious arm training long term. And this proved to be a problem for several reasons. The first is that there is so much more than just biceps that make up the bulk of your arms. This is key if you want to drastically change your body composition. And secondly, if you're trying to cut and get leaner to actively improve that body composition quickly, and you're training just biceps, you'll likely lose motivation and burn out. If you're not consistently training your entire body and you eat a calorie deficit, you don't get leaner, you get smaller. And if you want aesthetic looking arms, well, you need to get lean. And I only realized all these things in hindsight. The reason I eventually did manage to break through and build an arm training process that's sustainable and works had nothing to do with willpower or a mindset shift or anything like that. It was because of a fundamental change in my process, which basically solved these problems. First, I found a way to train them really effectively at home with some simple equipment, meaning without a gym and fancy equipment, which allowed me to make incredible progress in less time. And secondly, I massively cut down the amount of training I was trying to do. I didn't realize that had been getting in my way. But I did realize that I wasn't being consistent. So doing anything was going to be better than doing nothing as I currently was. And so in a sort of experiment, I decided to commit to the minimum amount that I could see myself doing each week, which meant there was no reason not to do it. And that was 1 single set. Lo and behold, that turned out to be one of the best things that I ever did. To build arm width, we basically need to lift heavy weights through flexion or extension of one main joint, the elbow. We put enough tension on these muscles through these ranges of motion. The result is physically larger biceps and triceps, with triceps making up the large majority of the muscle mass in the arms. Now we can also work our shoulders, the third major muscle of the arms. But for the purpose of this video, we'll focus mainly on biceps. As for triceps and shoulders, I'll talk more about these in another video. Just know that the same principles apply for effective and efficient gains. The key difference is how to correctly perform each one. So traditionally, biceps and triceps are built with 2 basic types of movements. The first are bicep curl variants like dumbbell curls, barbell curls, and these are considered a pull exercise. The second are push exercises like tricep cable extensions, and these focus on extension of the elbow joint, working the triceps. Now, if we look at the bicep curl, the hardest part of this exercise, or any exercise for that matter, is around the halfway point, i.e., when your elbow joint is at about 90 degrees. In other words, trying to surpass this point can sometimes almost feel impossible. Therefore, it's the only part of the movement where we make most of our muscle and strength gains. Once we pass this sticking point, the top becomes easier. As for the tricep, as in any tricep extension movements, the hardest part of these exercises is no different to the bicep. It's also hardest around the halfway point, specifically when your elbow joint reaches 90 degrees, which is why you oftentimes see a lot of guys loading the bar super heavy and swing their bodies to try and get the weight up in a bicep curl. But because we must look after our bodies, including our joints and overall structure, we must put recovery and proper form above everything else. Therefore, we must first learn what bad form looks like. This will allow us to perform the exercise to a high standard, and therefore perform the movement in a way where we can actually reap 100% of the benefits and nothing gets wasted. And obviously it takes practice and time, but what we put in now will save us a ton of time in the future. Keep in mind, growth takes time. And as you're about to see, it takes us far less time than you think to trigger that growth. So let's look at how we're going to do that to reap 100% of the benefits from any exercise, targeting your biceps and triceps in just a single set of training a week. So I'm going to walk you through these progressions, how to scale to 0, how to scale the difficulty up and find that max intensity. We'll also look at programming, training volume and frequency, and then I'll show you the practical side of things to guarantee results with each workout. Like with any of our movements, the first thing we want to establish is full range of motion reps with 0 or minimal load, because that way you can learn proper form with super low risk of injury. And it's quite easy. Start with just a barbell if you can, or a long wooden stick, or simply just the lightest weights you have. You want it to feel light if you're just starting out, so standing nice and tall, using your chosen weight when doing bicep curls. Move nice and slow through full range of motion. If you're limited in the range of motion for any reason, then you can just practice going through whatever range you're comfortable with. Anything is better than nothing. And if you do have fully functioning elbow joints and are able to move through full range of motion, then the absolute gold standard range of motion looks something like this. Starting at the bottom with your palms facing forward, weight in hand, lift the weights up in an arc-like motion. Elbows tucked into your side the entire time, and stop when you can't move anymore. There should be a 30 to 45 degree gap between your forearms and your bicep. That is the elbow flexion, aka a bicep curl. The other thing we want to see is a strong wrist. If your wrist is flopped down, you want to squeeze your fist a little harder. Ideally, you want them in line with your forearms the entire time. Practice proper form where possible. Plus, this puts majority of the tension on your biceps as opposed to other muscles to help move the weight up. And also, if your elbows come forward a little at the top, that's fine too. Science shows that this is highly beneficial if your goal is to build bigger biceps. Reason is, it flexes your bicep a little harder as your elbow moves forward, away from your body. But for the most part, move through the full range of motion as far as your bicep will allow, while keeping your elbows fixed by your side. On the way down, reverse the movement in a controlled manner, stopping right before your arms fully extend. We don't want to fully relax here. We want to keep the tension on your biceps. Plus, at this point, especially with weights, you should begin to feel a slight stretch in your biceps. This is exactly what you want to look for. The more conscious you are of this stretch, the better. It not only helps you stay more conscious and aware of your body and how it's feeling, but it also tells you when to reverse the movement. This is also crucial for muscle building as we're maximizing what's called time under tension. In other words, when we don't fully relax and we repeat the movement from this point, we are increasing the time under tension, which is one of the keys to effective muscle building. So you got 0 load on and you're moving through full range of motion. The last basic to tick off is to ensure we're maintaining a relatively strong and tall posture. Basically, for this movement, we want to stay as upright as possible. The key mistakes I see a lot of people make, especially once they start loading on weight, is 1, if it starts to get a little heavy, on the way up, they start leaning back. They try to use their body weight to lever the weight up. Not only is this dangerous for your spine, it also takes the tension off the biceps, therefore drastically decreasing the muscle building potential. And 2, they use momentum to swing the weight up and down, as if trying to complete the set as fast as possible. The biggest problem with this is that a lot of the tension is not in the biceps. The idea is not to get any help at all, because if you do, you're decreasing your potential for more gains. Okay, so now that you're moving full range of motion through the right movement pattern with 0 load, we can add load and start moving closer to your strength limit. Once we get closer and closer to this limit, we'll start to build strength and workout efficiency increases too. Remember, as we've discussed earlier, we want to maximize the intensity for the entire exercise, or at least where possible. Reason being, we can then maximize muscle and strength gains while minimizing time. But for now, we're still warming up. So the first step is to obviously know how much your bar weighs, and then throw on some weights. Then using proper form, go ahead and test it out, readjusting if you need to. If you're using dumbbells, that's fine too. Test the weight and make the changes where necessary. To give you a better idea as to how much weight to add on, think about how hard the starting weight was. Think level of difficulty. If it was hard to extreme, you might want to stick with the original weight, even if it was just a bar. That's perfectly okay. If it was medium weight, you might want to add the smallest weight possible and go from there. You don't want this next warm-up set to be too challenging, just slightly more challenging. Basically, it feels easy to medium at about 20 to 30% weight, test it out for 1 to 2 reps, and then go from there. Again, we're gradually moving closer to our strength limit. This way we avoid or limit potential injuries. Plus, we're only just warming up. We want to reserve our energy for the heavier, more taxing sets. And remember, practice proper form throughout the entire movement. So no leaning back using momentum to move the weight. Otherwise it makes working your biceps completely redundant. The only thing we're moving here is our elbow joint. And if anything, a little bit of our shoulders. Typically the bar is 20 kilos in most gyms. Mine happens to be 15. But I've added 1.25 kilos on each side, the smallest weight possible, making it 20 kilos total. It's not that heavy, but I can feel it's a little more challenging. Pro tip, if the starting weight was way too light for you, consider adding a little more weight than I did. So in short, use as much weight as you can comfortably handle. You can always start with less and increase it with time. So now that we've loaded up and we've done a few test reps with good form, yes, when curling the bar up, I'm moving at a slower pace than what you may be used to seeing. It's just a personal choice. And yes, this might feel light and that's great, because it's only going to get harder. That is the point. We want to ease our way in, because just like with any change worth making, it takes time. So next, assuming we're happy with this weight, next we'll add a little more to get us to where it's somewhat challenging, but it's also not too easy. In terms of levels, a medium to hard. For me, this is 30 kilos. Keep in mind, you don't need to be super strong or lifting insanely heavy weights to build muscle. You also don't need to be constantly increasing the weight month after month in order to see gains. Now, this may not be the heaviest thing you've ever lifted. Maybe it is. If it's too challenging, lower the weight, or if it's too easy, add some weight. Then, push for max reps, aka as many reps as you can with good form, pushing to or near failure. If you end up doing more than 10 reps, you definitely want to increase the weight. This is because we're taking way too long to get to the highly effective reps. And that means longer workouts, which is not why we're here. However, if you happen to only manage 1 to 2 reps, this is too heavy and it's likely not sufficient for activating sufficient muscle gain. That's okay, we've now discovered our upper limit. If that's the case, you'll want to lower the weight by 10 to 20%, going for max reps again. This way you'll likely fall in the ideal intensity range for efficient and effective gains, and lower the weight again if necessary. So if you do this properly, session after session, just one hard set a week, working hard throughout the entire set, pushing to failure, doing proper form, you're bound to guarantee results. It's extremely efficient and effective. Okay, so just touching on safety, I know a lot of people see this and start freaking out, but let's be clear. Your muscles are stronger than you think. If your muscles were to tear, it would only do so if you were trying to resist against an insane level of weight, especially on the way down. In that case, you wouldn't be able to lift it up in the first place. Another scenario would be if you were working your biceps, even though they're extremely sore from previous days of working it out. But I assume you're smarter than that. Basically, your tendons are able to withstand way more force than you think, especially when moving through a natural range of motion under control. So by all means, push if you're comfortable, but if not, do ease yourself into it. Increase the intensity week after week. If you're worried for any other reason, just remember this. 1, make sure you're warming up to your heaviest set, meaning you should do 1 to 2 mini sets that gradually increase in weight from set to set. Your last mini set should be somewhere between 50 to 75% of your heavy set. Secondly, because you're only doing 1 set to failure, you're far less likely to run into overtraining or burnout, which I've definitely experienced many times over the past 14 years. So there's no need to worry about training intensely for just the 1 set. In fact, your current biggest risk is if you don't train at all, because with age, your strength is going to decline. So if you find this method to be enticing right now, then that's great. Use this opportunity to start working against that natural strength and muscle decline. More importantly, do it with proper, safe lifting form. If you're unsure about anything, you've got information at your fingertips. But do keep in mind, in order for your muscles and connective tissue to remain healthy and strong, we need to look at training volume and frequency. As with anything, too much or too little can hurt you. So let's go through the protocol for this so you can start implementing. Very simply, 1 set a week is the ideal minimum. Do this for each exercise. If you're doing 2 exercises a day like I do, I'd pair them like this as shown on screen. Follow this if you're unsure, but honestly, there's no right or wrong way to go about this. The idea though is to make sure you cycle through every major muscle before returning back to biceps, for example. But do allow for at least 1 to 2 days rest before hitting biceps again. Or if anything, listen closer to your body. So you're doing one set. It is a maximum effort set. Every rep counts. Your form needs to be on point. And if you select the right weight, you should hit maximum effort in 10 reps or less. Do you have to push to failure every time? No, but if your body allows and you feel your body is in great shape, then why not? The benefits give you every reason to do so. If you're feeling tired despite a restful day or week, chances are your body is trying to recover. It's telling you to chill out. That's when I suggest you don't push to failure. And on the rare occasion, you may not feel like working out at all. That's okay. You don't have to work out every day in order to maintain your progress. Resting when you need to is just as powerful. Sometimes it's just what your body needs. Otherwise, you risk getting sick and injured. As for doing multiple exercises in one session, make sure to rest 2 to 3 minutes between each exercise and/or set. This will allow you to regain the energy you need to push heavy again. If you've pushed to max effort for a particular exercise, you can rest knowing you've done enough to make at least some gains. Again, you're playing the long game. This method is not a 30-day transformation. It's a method that's sustainable for at least as long as you live. Do keep in mind if you find it's not fun or you're genuinely concerned that the low volume won't make you any gains, then by all means throw in another set. And by the way, I do this. Straight after your heavy set, drop the weight by 20 to 30% and go for max reps again. Doing this with minimal rest will allow you to hit the more effective reps sooner, rather than resting 2 to 3 minutes for the next set. But this only applies if you're doing the same exercise or hitting the same muscle. And I'll be honest, it's a more advanced technique. So if you're just starting out, just a little heads up. All up, for each exercise, it should take you less than 5 minutes. And finally, measuring progress, a great source of motivation. As you repeat this weekly or even daily, you're going to begin to feel and look good. But sometimes it's hard to see what's actually changed. And so for this reason, a nice way you can measure your progress is to take progress shots. Pictures, videos. Easy way to do this is in the mirror with good lighting. Downlighting works every time. A lot of people say you should track your numbers from your workout, and you can. But from my experience, it can demotivate you too. Reason is, strength doesn't always go up. In fact, it can sometimes decline for even weeks. And it sucks because a decline in strength doesn't always mean you're not building muscle. In fact, pushing to failure, i.e. lifting within your body's capacity but close to the upper limit, you're going to build muscle no matter what. Because what you're doing is creating the necessary tear in your muscle fibers, which then leads to muscle gain. So yes, do take a mirror selfie before you start practicing this method, and then again monthly or 3 monthly, and then compare. What I often do nowadays is check myself out in the mirror after a workout. It's vain but priceless, especially with how motivating it can be for yourself. And if you really want to track anything, I'd suggest tracking what muscle or exercises you've done. This way you'll know what to do in your next workout, and also ensure you rest enough before hitting the same muscle again. That's it. That's the process. Any questions, do leave them below. If you want to learn more about how I train, check out this video here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.